All right, here we are, back at it. Episode 2 of Strange and Departed. I'm joined by Jim Strange, Travis Ring, and I'm Dustin Ring. This week, we're going to talk about one of the most controversial subjects, extreme haunted houses, such as McKamey Manor, and if we should have a rating system for haunted attractions. But before that, we're going to build on the foundation with the history of haunted houses and where it could be in the future. It's really good stuff, so make sure that you guys subscribe to our channel on YouTube and email us at strangeanddeparted@gmail.com. Also, check out our website, strangeanddeparted.com. Let's do this. All right, guys, welcome back. What's new?
Hey, how's it going, dude?
I know I'm doing pretty good. I just painted my studio, actually. Pretty stoked about it.
It looks so good, Travis. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. I had some resting techniques that I learned it was like 2 trans worlds ago, but I'm pretty stoked about it, definitely. So shout out to our subscribers also. What do we have, 70 now? Pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
So what did you use? Is it Brutal Rust or is it?
I think it was Fall Leaves was the orange that I started off with.
Okay.
And you just did like a base coat, and then I added some sand to it to kind of make it a little bit more distorted, and added some Varathane. What was that? Jacobine, I want to say. So, some of the high points and things like that. And of course, had to use some shellac, thank you, with a spray bottle to make the the white kind of corrosion look. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty good, definitely.
I really like the bit.
Travis sent me a video or a photo of him doing that.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I can't just have a regular background. So I used one of my panels for my haunted house.
Yeah.
We all have something visually appealing behind us. So.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mine's pretty basic though. It was just great stuff foam. I did different layers of gray paint. I got foam skulls from Nightmare Makers FX, and these are just like cheap bones and stuff like that. You add a wood finish, and
so
these are panels.
You made that's not a vacuum form panel then. I was thinking that it was at first. So it's just like great stuff and some like cheap bones. No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's insulation foam. It's an insulation foam panel. It's like an inch thick. And then I screwed from behind. I did all of the I screwed from behind. I did all the I took all the foam skulls, the flat back skulls from Nightmare Makers FX, and they have really good stuff. Huh. And but they're all just like basic foam. There's no color to them.
So they sell a mold. Did you buy the mold or did you buy their?
I'm gonna buy the mold this year. I had bought a couple skulls just to bring home, just to be like, this is what I really like this. Try to pick which one I like and kind of incorporate where am I gonna use it in the haunt kind of thing. And then I think this was one of them, the one right in the center. So I put that on one. I did another like mandala kind of thing on another panel. And I was like, I really like these, but of course it's like September, October. I'm really going to town. I don't have time to pump out like 50 more. So I ended up sending her an email at Nightmare Makers FX. And I was like, I need like 10 or 15 like more skulls. Can you help me out? Mm-hmm. Flat back, ready to go. And within like 2 weeks, she sent them all out to me for like $70 or something for like a bag of them. So it wasn't bad. So I put that all on.
It's so inexpensive, and they're good people too. Like every time I go over like at Transworld to their booth, they're always the nicest people. Mm-hmm. Like positive, just great people.
And the bones are cheap, man. The bones were like, I don't know. I got a bag of bones, which is like the hands and the feet and everything like that. Screwed them all on, and then once everything's on, once all the bones are on the panel, then I take the great stuff foam, go all around it pretty much. Just use up I used close to 13. I used a lot of almost 13 to 14 to 15 cans of great stuff. Then that cures, and then you have the painting and all that stuff like that. But anyway, you guys had cool backgrounds. I didn't want to be the video gamer, look like a kid sitting in his bedroom.
Dustin is kind of cheating a little bit because we've already created that. That's our haunted house.
Yeah, I didn't have to do anything.
So you didn't have to do anything. You just had to move your studio to another
I'm just moving the studio slowly down.
It's good though. I like
to all of our returning listeners, I'm in the same spot as last time. I just did the whole background with some lights, so
yeah.
now we look a little bit more professional, but like I'm happy
definitely
about
does,
it.
and that we're going to get better and better. And we like your feedback too. Anybody that has any comments, let us know at the strangerdeparted@gmail.com. Let us know what kind of content you want us to be talking about any future episodes. But
right before we really dive in, you guys, I just want to do a quick shout out. I'm from New England, and WAAF 107.3 went off the airwaves February 23rd. It was a Friday at midnight. They were on the air for 50 years. And anyone that's from New England, any haunter from New England, at one point or another, you had WAAF on your radio. It was like our premier rock station. So I know it doesn't mean anything to people all across America, but for us in New England, it was a big deal them going off the air. You know, it was one of those radio stations, you just click it on and rock and roll would play, you know? So for 50 years, my whole life, you know, it's always been a preset on the radio. So sad to see it go. They sponsored Rock and Shock from 2004 to 2019. That was our horror convention. You know, it was a convention at the DCU Center. And then the music would take place at the Palladium down in Worcester. And I'm sad to see it go, you know, and but I want to say thank you for the memories. This is my only platform to really get it out there. So thank you for the memories. You will be missed, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's kind of sad to see a lot of these, big radio stations or local radio stations be bought out by bigger, corporations and things like that.
Yeah, well, it seems like everything from our childhood is just it's gonna slowly go away. You know, like AAF was just kind of like MTV and VH1. MTV and VH1 used to be rock and roll, cool stuff, and then we were there for the downfall, the reality shows and all that jazz. And now it's just not there anymore. You know, so
right.
But it's a different. But it's old stuff dying or not dying. Well, old stuff going away makes room for new stuff to happen. So I try to remain positive about stuff, like hopefully there'll be another cool radio station, another cool podcast, right. Another cool satellite radio or something, to take its place, so
yeah, for sure.
Or other podcasts. Like that's like the cool thing about that too. Like, cause I feel like satellite radio, which is so archaic, is gonna die anyways, and we could go on a subject about that. But with that being said, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to. I just got back from Jordy Shell's studio in LA and created one of these things. He gave us like a pull from one of his molds, and it was so much fun. I highly recommend it. Jordy Shell, check out his classes. The next one is March 21st through the 22nd, which I believe is sold out.
Yeah, and those of you that don't know who Jordy Shell is,
Transworld too.
He's like one of the most iconic, character designers in, the movie industry. I mean, he's created things in Avatar and other amazing movies.
Oh, yeah, he was like the sculptor for Men in Black 3, like one of the main people, Hellboy, Aliens versus Predator.
If you watch Making Monsters on Distortions, Jordy Shell is the funny guy. You know what I mean? He's the guy. He's a sculptor, but he's sculpted for many platforms when it comes to the haunted industry as well. I used to work for one of the co-owners that owned Morbid Industries, and he had a whole product line. Actually, hold on one second. This is actually a Jordy Shell. It's a master.
Oh, that's beautiful.
For the, can you
that's
get
so good.
That? So. I worked for the Fright catalog, but one of the owners was co-owners of Morbid Industries. So when I worked for the Halloween Outlet, which I talked about in the last episode, it was all in the same building, So I would see stuff come and go, and I saw like this is a master, so it's for a mask. It's hollow, but there's no eyes cut out or anything like that. It's well painted, but this is a Jordy Shell master, and it's part of my.
I did not know
collection.
that because I saw that on the last episode, and I was like, "That thing's so good. That's rad."
Mm-hmm.
I could like his class. Like I didn't even need to like airbrush at all. Like I could just go in there and just like watch him talk, and he is so fucking funny. Like the guy just busts into different accents and like different like.
Oh yeah, he's definitely
like he's unbelievable, and I think like this dude right here, I literally. Not finished at all, but took one of his like maquette classes on Stan Winston School of Character Arts, which is one of our favorite places. And so definitely check them out. Check out Jordy Shell. Go on their website. I think like one of the things though, like that we really wanted to talk about this episode was kind of like the history of haunted houses and kind of go from past, present to future, and kind of discuss like where we're at. And I love this topic so much because it brings so many ideas. It's always good to look at history, right?
Yeah, and honestly, the person to talk about this is Jim. He's the guy that just knows everything about the past, the history of the haunted industry that we're a part of. So, Jim, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about like where everything began?
People have been telling spooky stories for centuries. Imagine like cavemen, pagans, our ancestors sitting around a campfire telling stories. What are they going to be talking about? Demons, spirits, beasts, their deities. The tradition of storytelling can be traced back like thousands of years, all the way to the ancient Greeks, you know? So I wanted to start with that because before attractions and people spending money on anything, that's where it all spawns from. You know, people have a fascination. They need to be and it's almost an escape. You know, it's an escape from your everyday.
Yeah,
you
just
know,
like we're all sitting around the campfire, and you know, people are telling spooky stories. We're trying to entertain each other, and that's it all spawned off of that for sure. From
being scared is fun if you think about it. Like what do you do every time you get scared? You know, in a haunted house or any kind of setting, you laugh afterwards. You go, you got me. You know, like. But think about it. So it's an adrenaline rush. It's your body gets hot. You laugh
your dopamine
afterwards.
levels go up too, which is like a good thing. Like you're like, yes,
yeah,
that
exactly.
was awesome. And I feel like for me, like it's always been something like if you think about like our ancestors, there was always like some weird thing that was gonna, like, if they're in the woods, like something that was gonna eat them. And so we don't have that anymore. Like we're pretty damn safe. So I feel like it still is in us, in our DNA. And we love it. Like we love
primordial.
I would imagine like, you know, all right, so just say we're thousands of years in the past, we're sitting around a campfire. You bet your ass one of us is gonna get up to go pee. And we're gonna come out of the woods going. It's gonna scare people, but they're gonna laugh afterwards. They're gonna be like, "Oh, Frank, you got me," or whatever the caveman's name was, you know. Yeah. But that's how I look at it, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it stayed with us our entire evolution. I mean, probably even since we were apes and things like that. You know that like that scare, like you're you know, something jumps out at like you think you're going to be eaten, you think you're going to die, and at the end, if you don't die, then you kind of are grateful that you're still alive. And but I don't know, I guess the haunted community has kind of taken that to a different level, to where you walk into a place, think you're going to die, and you don't. So at the end, you know, you get that adrenaline rush, and yeah,
obviously, like what Dustin said about the dopamine levels, I think we can do a whole podcast on the science behind scaring, the dopamine, the serotonin, your adrenaline, but we'll leave that for another podcast. Obviously, people realized early on in history that you can profit off of fear. You know, an early display of the haunted attraction was in 1797 in Paris, France, the Phantasmagoria, which really what it was it was a theater, and they used lanterns and they projected on a screen frightening images of skeletons, demons, ghosts. They used smoke and screens and illusions just to make a haunting effect, you know. So the Phantasmagoria, it was one of those things where in the 1700s, what did you have? All you had to do was you worked. There's everything was work, you know. Like we could discuss P.T. Barnum, and we could discuss.
Living in that age is not very good either. I mean, we used to literally throw shit out our windows and like dead bodies, you know, like the plague and like things like that. Like it was running rampant across a lot of Europe at the time. So I mean. I don't know how that really ties into why we enjoy horror, but I'm sure that there's some aspects that are tied into that. It's gonna
a lot of what I'm gonna be. It's all gonna go back to escapism. You know, if you really think about it, you have to escape the real life horrors of life. You know, like I could say it 50 times in this podcast. You know, we have war, disease, famine, plague. You know, economic crisis. You know, we have the coronavirus. You know, there's always something, you know, but that's nothing new. You know what I mean? So people think, oh, the coronavirus, we can talk about that if you want. Yeah. But that's nothing new, man. There's always been like that thing on the news, because all they do is just they push their fear agenda. And so it's an escape. It's an escape.
It's an escape because we know that we were able to get out of that haunted attraction, or like we're able to, survive. And, it's a good feeling being able to survive something horrible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like that even goes into, you were talking about the, in Paris, France, like some of the earliest haunted, attractions and things like that, which very little has been documented on that. But, you're talking like Madame.
That was more. Yep, that was more theater though. Like, so right. I'm not saying so attraction meaning like we say attraction and we think of like Six Flags theme park.
Yeah,
nowadays.
Of course. So
back then, an attraction is something that you can go to, you spend money, and it's a visual experience, if you will.
I feel like they're all kind of interconnected though in some ways. Like even like horror films and things like that. Just the art of the scare, like being afraid of something, in general, like it ties into so many different genres. And I feel like it's been going on, like you were saying, from sitting around a campfire, from the caveman days, the hunter-gatherer days, and just telling each other.
It's all entertainment at the end of the day. Like we all want to be entertained. Right. So if it's a haunted attraction, theater, immersive environments, VR, escape rooms, like it's all part of the entertainment. And if you interject some sense of horror, scariness, then like is that where it becomes like a haunted house, like haunted attraction?
Right.
True. Definitely. True. So on that note, the art of horror, if you will, people, they want to be scared, they want to be entertained, but they also want to see something like grotesque or anything like that. Because we've all, if you're listening, for years, if war is going on, if bad things are going on, images just pop in your head, so whether you know about it or not, it's going to be in your head, it's going to be permeating in your brain, right. Going, I wonder what that looks like, I wonder what that looks like. So again, people profit off of that. In the 1800s, Madame Tussauds, they had the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. She had the Chamber of Horrors, and it was introduced to British audiences.
Madame Tussauds, right? Is that different?
Tussauds, yeah.
Madame Tussauds, yeah.
Okay, so 1800s, Madame Tussauds.
Maybe, yeah. Tomato. I really don't.
Yeah. One of us is right, so we can't be wrong. But the Wax Museum was introduced to British audiences, and it showed decapitated heads. It had like from the French Revolution, had decapitated heads, had the guillotine, had a whole chamber of horrors. You can still see it today. The original is not there anymore, and it's all been redone. But it's again that we're talking about 1800s, early 1800s now,
right.
and all the way up to like the late 1800s, people wanted to go and see a wax museum, so not quite a haunted attraction yet, but getting pretty close. You're walking into a building, there's figures, there's blood, there's gore, there's lighting, there's sound. So it's not so much like we didn't have animatronics per se in the 1800s like we have today,
right?
But so we're getting there, we just went from the caveman days up to the 1800s.
It always seems to be like around the time of tragedy where like a lot of inspiration comes up. Like we're talking about the plague and, the French Revolution, like you were saying with Madame Tussauds, and like even in the early 1900s, 1920s and things like that during the Great Depression.
We're getting to that.
There, but we haven't gone there for sure, because this isn't even the first real true haunted attraction, which I'm sure you're getting to.
No, well, let's see. We got the. I also want to bring up in the 1800s the Grand Guignol, which is theater in France. That's 1897, and it was theater, but it was graphically staged horror entertainment was what it was called. Graphically staged horror entertainment. And I'm going to have, we have the photos and stuff like that you'll be able to see. But it was again, theater. Like, if you really think about it, what is a haunted attraction? It's theater. It's live theater. You have actors. I mean, just because you think theater, you think of a stage and you think of, the lights, camera, action kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But like a haunted attraction, it's live theater. You're in it. You're in the scene. Excuse me. But yeah, Dustin, what's your take on this?
I think because I fucking hate wax museums personally, like not, even though like we do like the static props and everything like that. Not a fan, but I think it like I love the history of the like kind of like where you're at and like going on this, and I feel like one of the next things that we're gonna be like talking about is like basically like where amusement parks had roller coasters, right? And that was like kind of like the birth of like, oh, like I want to go on something that's super scary. And like back in the day in the 1900s, like roller coasters were scary because it was like you go to this weird circusy fair type place and they were jank and it was scary. But then people that had these like cheaper like basically pop-up shop type fairs, and they couldn't afford roller coasters, so that what they would do is create these like haunted houses that were basically just like a box. And I love that like part of history of haunted houses, because that's where you got like all those like cool like the wavy mirror, the like different maze rooms. Yeah, it's cool.
Orton and Spooner, the first one, 1915,
Yep.
And what is that, Lynhook?
Orton Spooner Ghost House.
Yes.
In 1915, opened up in Liphook, England.
Yes.
That was the first recorded haunted walkthrough haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still see it today. It's part of the Hollycombe Steam Collection. You have to go to England to see it, but it ran off of steam. It was everything that moved
So
in it
the
was
steam was
off.
like the pneumatic part.
That's fucking cool.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's
I mean,
fucking cool.
They didn't have like Unit 70 Scare Factory props like we have today.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of their components were just like, people doing this kind of stuff. It was
it's
really,
still though, but
really basic. But it ran off of steam, and that's 1915.
And it's a ghost house. Like, and if you think back in the day, like anything that's ghost related, like you had ghost stories and things like that. They didn't have the internet, obviously, like we have today. Like going to a place that possibly had ghosts in it and like who were interacting with them is insane. Like just that thought. And
right.
And
we're so spoiled in my mind, like right now, but like back in the day, like Dustin, like you said, not every place could afford a roller coaster, but like that same thrill, like now we have to be spun upside down 50 times and dropped, 500 feet in the air just to get like a reaction out of people, because we're so, our culture is just so like just throwing, we have so much stuff like thrown at us.
Right.
But back in the early 1900s, someone jumping out and going boo was like, whoa, this isn't the potato fields. Whoa! So
somebody's going to maybe kill me, and you may think that somebody actually may be killing you too.
Right. Well, it wasn't my original thought to put in like P.T. Barnum, but it's because he had the museum in New York, but not necessarily a dark.
So I love what you just said though, is like, so like
that.
when you think about like the roller coasters of the past were like very unsafe, and like as we kind of go through the history, haunted houses became more safe, right? So like we're going to talk about like the fire at Six Flags.
Oh yeah. We didn't make it to the 80s yet,
but I think that's where like in this current point in history that we're at in this timeline of your history of haunted houses, I think this is where though it's super interesting to me is that it is where we're at right now, where like you had these roller coasters that were fucking scary, that could fall off the tracks, that could be.
And some of it, what was it? Action Park in New Jersey. That was like one of like basically maintained by teenagers, and there was so many people that were getting hurt, every single day. They ended up having to drop their insurance because it was so expensive.
So Halloween-themed haunted houses in America emerged during the Great Depression. About the same time as trick-or-treating in the universal horror genre. You got to think like Frankenstein and Dracula came out in the Depression, for some of you folks out there, 1930s, 1929 it started, went throughout the 30s and the beginning of the 40s. In 1931, Frankenstein and Dracula came out. You had The Mummy coming out in 1932. All the brides of and the sons of Draculas and Frankensteins all came out in the 30s. And The Wolfman wrapped it all up in 1941. So you got to think like, again, people wanted to profit off of The Great Depression, man. People are depressed. People are in a financial bind. They're in a rough point in their life. How do you not think about all that? How do you not think
cool, right? So like
children?
Look, and I always think about this, right? So like you have people in, maybe it's not fucking cool, but like you have people in like a shitty position in life, and then they want to like release their energy on people that have an even shittier life, and they're getting massacred in a haunted house, right? Or whatever, like Wolfman, like all those like old like Universal movies, like that is crazy, right? Like that's how they release their energy. It's such a great way to look at like what we do today and be like, all right, how do we take this and make it something that people want to see? Like they like to see that. It's weird. It's super weird. It's weird that I even like haunted houses. Like honestly, I swear to God.
Well, because
we have a more
they do that in like German, like old German folklore and things like that. You know, some of the crazy stories that were told were during the middle of winter in Germany. That's where Krampus came from. That's where a lot of like the scariest things originates from is from
Germany, Austria, Prague. Krampusnacht.
Yes, it's cool. It's crazy, but it really stories come from oppression, which is interesting. I don't really understand the psychological aspect behind it, but it is really interesting how you see a repetition with that behavior with people.
Right, and it goes back to like this people needing an escape.
Yeah,
and like if everything was like peaches and cream and just roses and butterflies all the time,
right,
we'd be out of a job, man. People just be like, oh, well, I don't need to get scared. I can just fucking go down to the cherry factory and get blown by Willy Wonka. Like it's one of those things where you need something else. Like you need something. People need to grab onto something. People need to be scared. They need to laugh. They need to cry. That's the same thing. If we're talking about, I think, again, film and cinema can be totally used in a whole other episode because we can talk for ages on the influence of Hollywood and cinema in haunted attractions. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to put it on this podcast, but like it goes the same thing. People need to cry. How many dramas are out there? People need to laugh. How many comedies are out there? People need that feeling of being scared and overcoming the fear.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm scared as fuck. I don't want to watch Star or Annabelle or whatever the fuck's out there these days.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way back to like we're talking about Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman. That is the modern day. Our
even Nosferatu
and Star and Nosferatu. When it came out, I saw it at the movie theater one time. They played it on. I went to a theater and they were playing the silent film. I've seen it. Nosferatu, Phantom of the Opera, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So those are all silent films.
Right.
I don't want to talk about films in this episode.
I know, but it's okay. You can still talk about it a little bit.
But
it's still part of our.
I remember going outside during intermission because anyway, those are silent films. Okay, so they have back in those days, the music wasn't in movies like how we know it now. So they would hire people to play the organ or the piano. They'd have a little orchestra playing. They had a whole they had music playing. So I went to a show similar to that. They were reenacting that. What I'm trying to say. Went outside during intermission to smoke a butt, and people were like, "This isn't scary." And I'm like, "You guys don't understand. This movie came out in 1918. This was terrifying back then, Okay, so let's not get off topic. So, guys, now we that's all the way up until like the 30s and the 40s. Okay, so now we're talking about like the 1950s. You start seeing show like the Ghost Show and the Spook Show. A lot of magicians would incorporate it into their act. It would be performed before a cinema or a movie would play. People are getting interested in the paranormal and ghosts and stuff floating and all that kind of jazz. So you got the 50s. The 50s is really that spook show, ghost show. Magicians would that's where that really would come from. Then you got the 60s. You got like the Haunted Mansion coming out. So Disneyland opened the Haunted Mansion August 9th, 1969. And it was an instant success. It wasn't like, well, I don't know if it's going to be good numbers this year. It was an instant success. They had thousands of people come. I forget the exact numbers, but I want to say like 80,000 something people it would come in a day.
Right.
Obviously, it's Disneyland, so they have the numbers already at the attraction or at the park. But you got 80-something thousand.
Like Disneyland that I love so much, and I just want to interject this in. We could talk a whole episode about Pepper's Ghost, but like that was the first time where Pepper's Ghost made a reappearance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a rad, like the history of what,
and that's the illusion that you're talking about, right? Like it's incorporating, like Jim was talking about earlier, about how, you know, we were using the illusions that a lot of magicians were using and incorporating it into the haunt itself. And another thing that's really interesting also about the Disneyland haunted attraction that they have there, the haunted house that they have, is they originally wanted it to be people walking through, and people were so scared they didn't want to go into the next room. So they had to put up these buggies, right? They call them the doom buggies, to force the people into the room so that they could continue the throughput of the 80,000 people that were coming and showing up for Disneyland, which is insane. It's brilliant how they did that and how they incorporated it into their theme park.
It is brilliant. Everything about what they did at that attraction, there's so much to learn about. Like, because you never see that in like modern day haunts. Like you never see like a Doom's buggy. Like you really don't.
You don't do that.
Like and like so we all talk about like
I see the
like
cons,
queue lines, and you have this throughput, and if you're not getting 100 people through within X amount of time, like that's bullshit. And I think like what Disneyland did was a smart way to do it. Like it's a great way to actually go through a haunted house. And like, I mean, there is people like on Haunters Hangout. I have one up right now showing where a guy like took some type of like basically like technology to be able to do it through his garage. And that's cool. Highly and awesome, like technologically rad feat. But I also love the idea that you're walking through a haunted house. Like if you have to move your legs and you freeze up, like that's scary as shit. When you're in a like
right. Well, it's like it's a 50-50 thing too, because when you're in like a dark ride setting, it's like I totally agree with you. I like the walking through. It's a physical thing. You freeze up, you drop, you scream, you fall backwards. But like no, in a dark ride though, like you're forced. There's no backing up. You're forced right into a scene, right into what that person wants to show you.
Right.
Again, a topic for another podcast. But like, I love the old like
cool
dark rides.
Shit,
like, going
man.
back to my
They're
childhood.
Fucking rad.
So
like
cool.
I wish there was a reemergence of them, and I feel like there could be, but like in current history,
it has to be done right though. I like the idea of maybe like the first first corner you turn around, you have like some vintage style, like a vintage kind of animatronic or something like that, or a couple. You know what I mean, to make it feel like you go back into time. But then you have to turn the corner and you have to reamp it. You have to modernize it. But like I love. It's just that goes all the way back to like I said, like the early 1900s.
The old thing, the old factor, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like being put back in the past is more terrifying than like a new haunt. Like the old cemeteries, that's why they're so terrifying. It's like because it's something from the past, and to reintroduce something like you're saying in the past, into a new haunt is more scary in a lot of ways because there's a lot more questions that we have to ask.
I'm truly appreciative of Disneyland actually creating something like this, because in my mind is basically what happens is like you have like kids that are like they don't like scary stuff, right? And so like I feel like this is like kind of like that G-rated, like get you into haunted house style. And that's so cool because like I think like us as haunters like want to be like, what's the fucking next thing that we're gonna do that's like so much scarier than the last haunt that we saw the year before. And it's rad because like I have kids myself, and they love it. Like they love going there and seeing it. But like you know what? Like my girlfriend's kids have like hate our haunted house. Like they're literally like
It's pretty scary,
like they
man.
don't even want to come in our
They will
house.
not.
Like,
Teenagers that will
and I
there.
appreciate
And
people like in this point in history, Disneyland did something to promote haunted houses, and so like us as haunters always have to remember that.
Okay, so the biggest thing that we talked about was the Disney and the Haunted Mansion. That was the big last segment. Okay, so that was the 60s. Pretty much, you have home haunts and charity haunts starting in the 60s and going into the 70s. In the 70s, you have a lot more charity based haunts. So I know no one wants to hear it, but a lot of evangelical Christians, they really started like haunting, you know what I mean, for what we know for haunting.
Yeah, to scare you to love the devil.
That's fucking weird.
It happened to me. To scare you into not going to hell.
They were trying to get kids into the church, so they would have haunted houses. You have the JCs, the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. They have the JCs haunted houses. They have Campus Life. They have these small haunted houses. Jerry Falwell and the Liberty University introduced the first Hell House in 1972. So what you really have is you have, and again, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, everything that I'm saying, you can interject a ton of other haunted houses. I'm just trying to give you the big ones, the big, within that decade. But you have a lot of charity-based haunted houses, and people wanted to go out and they want to do stuff, and the church was there to give it to them, which I think is cool now because if you switch it around, I like seeing Satan and friggin' upside down crosses and goat's heads, but that's more of an artist standpoint. Let's not talk about like religion. That's a whole podcast and a half for itself.
I have so much ideas about that. Like, there's
so
much cool shit. Really quick to interject though, like because like if you think about like religion, the reason why they did certain things like that is to spook you into believing. I am so agnostic on the side of atheism, but I feel like that like whenever you look at something like that, like if it
on the side of Christianity,
like just all religions, I feel like really, back to what you were saying earlier is like you have fear, and so you could see like I've heard rumors and I've heard of like shit of movies like being produced by the Vatican, but basically what happens is that like if you can create somebody to be like, oh my god, is there really demons out there? Like maybe I should believe. Like that's fucking rad. Like to me, like as a haunter, I'm not
gonna dispute people's ideas on religion. I'm not gonna go against them. But what I will say this: it's a very well thought up story. You know what I mean? Like if you're for it, then I'm for that you're for it. I'm not gonna talk against religion on the podcast, but I will say it's a story. It's a big story, and people believed it though. If you make a haunted attraction, you have to make a story. You got to have the good, the bad, the ugly, the demons, the deities. You have to have all of that stuff, and it's all in the Bible. If you read the Bible, I don't read the Bible, but if you read the Bible, you got friggin', you got monsters, you got demons, you got devils, you have the good overcoming the bad.
There's some I remember when I used to go to a Christian school back in it was like 7th grade.
I did too, man.
Yeah, man. And like honestly, it was like every like 3 weeks we had a thing called Gory Stories. And it would be like a lot from the Old Testament mostly, and there was a couple of different very grotesque, like the Bible gets pretty insane whenever it comes to like visuals of like a stabbing a king with the knife into their belly, and how the knife would sink in, and like they got really detailed into some of that stuff.
Right, and back in the day too, going back to what we're saying, there wasn't television, there wasn't radio, there was stories. When the Old Testament, the New Testaments, when the Bible was written, it was what we were talking about. People were sitting around a fire talking about like, hey, you know what Jesus did? Again, I don't want to get all I don't want to get all religious on the podcast. I just don't want to do that. But it's stories.
Well, it's part of the history. So I think that's what's interesting.
It is part of the history, because like what churches. I mean, there's always been youth groups. There's always been how to get the kids to the church. People trick or treating. People need stuff.
And, and then you get a little crazy. And we're still in the 1960s, right? I think this is around that era. Was when one of the most iconic movies, The Exorcist, came out.
So it was like 1973. Just an FYI. Because I do believe that The Exorcist was like one of the iconic movies that made people like actually like horror movies again.
Right, but we're talking about, and we're talking about.
Look at how far they went. There was literally a teenage girl with a cross that she was shoving into her genitals during the first movie.
Like, Jesus, fuck you.
Yeah, it was like, and her head turned around and like, holy shit, man.
To this day, The Exorcist. To this day, The Exorcist is still a crazy movie to watch.
It's still a crazy movie.
It's crazy. I can you imagine in the 60s? What do you got in the 60s? It's just, they're repumping black and white films and the monsters and stuff like that. Like they have cool stuff in the 60s. Don't get me wrong, but like, oh my, I couldn't believe when I saw it as a kid. We're talking about the 90s now. I've already seen some stuff,
right?
But like, to this day, it is still a crazy.
1973 though. That was like during the 73. Just so you guys know, it's like it was like during like the
70s.
I feel like the hippie days, right? So like. What they did in that movie was pushing boundaries, which we'll get into in a second, Travis.
I'd love to go on a tangent so bad.
I know he wants to like jump into the future because like fucking I love current haunts, but like I feel like, if you think about The Exorcist, that was a fucked up time in cinema. Like people literally were like,
and we're talking about the 70s.
The 70s.
We're talking about
so like 70s of Exorcist. That was fucking ridiculous. Nobody has ever masturbated on film before, let alone with a cross. Like what the fuck? That's absolute.
Insane. All right, while we're talking about the 70s, you guys, well, I got you right here. We got 1973, Knott's Berry Farm. It's got to be. Not Scary Farm to all of us today, but Knott's Berry Farm began hosting its own Halloween attraction. So Knott's Scary Farm, and it was a gold standard for Halloween events in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, it still is, but they were the ones that first made. I mean, maybe it wasn't in the 70s, maybe it was a little bit later, but they were the ones that made the Scream Park idea. Like, you think haunted houses? All the haunted houses that I've talked about up until now have been houses, have been a building, have been a small establishment, a basement, a garage, an old abandoned warehouse. This was the first time Knott's made that Scream Park, and there's so many of them now across the all over the country. But the Scream Park, multiple haunted attractions, people running in the streets, hay rides, an actual attraction. They made the idea of the Scream Park.
I do have to give like props to like one of the movies I sent to you, Jim and Travis. Like Sliders of Ghost Town. Like one of it's like the origins of Sliders. Like that happened in Knott's Berry Farm, and like basically like the fucking great documentary, and I highly recommend it. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But like, it's so cool to see like how evolution of Sliders came into existence. And I will stop right there because I think everybody should watch Sliders of Ghost Town Origins. It's on YouTube. I think like YouTube Prime or whatever. Pay them money, but like it's free on YouTube. So check it out.
All right.
Does that sound too advertising? You're all right.
Hey, why don't you
moving on?
You should be drinking Coca-Cola, Dustin. All right, can you see me?
Yeah, no,
Jesus Christ!
And if you want people, drink Yingling.
Yeah. Well,
on the evening of May 11th, 1984, the haunted castle at Six Flags Great Adventure caught fire in New Jersey. 8 teenagers lost their lives in the fire. There were criminal charges filed, civil lawsuits, numerous investigations, and the inevitable result that fire safety laws and building codes and inspections were tightened up considerably nationwide. So the net effect would be that charity haunts, people that would not spend a ton of money on the haunts, charity, they get away with a lot of stuff because they weren't an establishment that was there all year round. A lot of them got shut down, so we're talking about a lot of the 80s, a lot of the home haunt, not home haunts, but people that were charging money, had to a lot stricter, you know. And but that had to happen though. It's a very
it needs to
unfortunate
happen for sure, and
Right.
that's
It's
where
unfortunate
we're
people-
talking about safety of our patrons here. This is like
right.
And I know that a lot of different, especially if you go to Transworld and you do the chaos seminars and things like that, you get chaos certified. You talk to fire chiefs, and you talk to people that really know what they're talking about whenever it comes to an action of what to do if there is some type of a fire, which is probably the biggest killer of everybody inside of a small enclosed building. And I know that we've talked.
Travis is absolutely right. You know, if you take the chaos certification, which I highly recommend for anybody in the haunted industry, it's offered by the Haunted Associations of America. You got to take the chaos. I mean, it's long. It's like 8 hours, but 8 hours spread out through the whole weekend. But like you said, you talk to fire marshals, you talk to people in the industry, and you have to watch video footage, man. You have to watch video footage of, you know, the fire in Rhode Island, the Great the Great White Concert.
That one's horrible too. And if you do want to,
it is, man.
you could go on YouTube and you could look up Providence Great White concert, and like it's so bad. Like they were over capacity for that particular facility, and not only that, there was fireworks behind the drummer. And they shouldn't have been shooting them off in the first place. There's so many different steps.
What caught fire too was the people that own the building. If I remember correctly, you know, please don't quote me. They had a lot of soundproofing in the ceiling and the walls behind it, for the neighbors and stuff like that. That is what the pyrotechnics caught on fire. So the grand story of everything is just like you have to be up to code. You have to see the fire marshal and everything like that. If you watch that video, man, I watched that video for the chaos certification at like 8 o'clock in the morning after a night of drinking, and you saw like people being piled up.
Dude, they
call it
it's
yeah,
so
everyone.
bad.
You got hundreds of
it wakes
people
your
trying to
ass
get out of
up. Like the second that they're like,
it
shut
does.
the fuck up. Open your eyes to this.
Right. You know, so people
this
are like,
is not a fucking joke.
Right, but prior to the 1980s, you didn't have to have fire code. There wasn't fire codes. There wasn't standards for a haunted attraction because they were up in October, down in November. You know, so it was like a pop-up thing to make extra money really quick. The charity haunts, the this and the that. But it had to happen, you guys. You know, it had to happen because
It makes sense.
It does.
Yeah,
happen.
it does make
like
sense.
you saw this stuff in was it Poland with the escape rooms? Like it's always gonna happen, and like
right.
This is where I love Transworld. It's not just like, oh, how can I make my set look really good? How can I make my haunted house look really fucking great?
How can I make my haunted house safe? You know,
the most important.
It is the most important part because like
Right.
this is an industry that like survives off of like great reputation, and like I want to make sure that like our haunted houses like are in. Like we all understand, like, all right, you're not gonna put up fucking shitty black plastic trash bags. Like you're gonna make sure that shit doesn't light on fire and kill everybody. Like you're gonna like put up fire retardant.
Well, they have fire retardant. They have fire retardant that you can mix in with paint. You know what I mean? Like they have. There's a whole list of. You can go on fire. We can talk about fire codes all on itself. But. I lost my train of thought on that one.
I want to talk about McKamey Manor.
All right. I gotta pee. I gotta pee real quick. I can't like talk and pee at the same time.
You guys are both peeing. So maybe I won't. I won't fucking talk about it.
Travis just randomly started talking.
I'm talking to myself. It happens often. Hail Satan.
It's sudden.
So yeah, discussing like safety. I think that we really all as haunters have to be very conscious about how to keep our patrons as safe as possible. You know, we've learned our lessons. You know, from the Six Flags adventure caught fire in New Jersey in 1984, and even like outside of the haunt community, We had the Great White in Providence that caught fire, and there's a serious concerns, especially whenever we're putting up our decorations and trying to make it as perfect as possible. But we sometimes have flammable paint, or we're using AC when we should be using DC, and the list goes on. And the idea is to try and keep our patrons as safe as possible. And one of the biggest concerns I know lately is a haunt. They consider themselves a haunt. I don't necessarily consider them a haunt. Would be McKamey Manor, where they literally are removing the life source. Like they're purposefully drowning people. And they do have a safe word, so I'm going to give them that. But I don't necessarily think.
I don't think McKamey
he does. He
though.
does now.
McKamey, the one he does now. We did it before.
And
like
like it's
the Haunters.
Here's the thing: is like it's a bitch out. Like his safety word is like literally like, let me recite this thing about like how I lost my lunch money and milk money or whatever the fuck is going on in his mind.
How do I do like? Sometimes it's like I'm gonna demean myself. Like I did not.
Right.
I am too pussy. Right, to be here, and I am not strong enough to be in McKamey Manor, and I will, it's a weird thing for a safe word, but they agree to it though.
There's other extreme haunts like Blackout that does have a safe
their
word.
Safety, their safe word is safety. Period. Like it's super easy.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas like if you watch like McKamey Manor, like his safety word is like literally a paragraph, and like you'll watch it where he keeps throwing mud in their face, like, oh, you didn't say it perfectly, you better say it perfectly. And it's like, that's not a safety word, that's a safety book, and that's fucked
all right,
up.
Well, if we're jumping into extreme, and again we're saying extreme haunts, I don't consider it a haunt. It's not.
No.
In my
what is a
mind,
haunt to you though? I'm curious,
it's,
Jim, because I disagree that it's not a haunt.
Okay, so for the for the aspect of a haunt, I mean, he has like the elements of decor, he has lighting and animatronics and stuff like that. But to me, a haunt it's one of the greatest. It's an art form. It's one of the greatest art forms. You have, sensory, theater, acting, lighting, props, painting, visuals, psychology. It's an art form. When I go to a haunted attraction, I don't want someone friggin' in my face screaming and fucking throwing crap and waterboarding me and physically abusing me. I want to see the art. I want to see the time that people put into this.
See, and I
so
agree.
I'm not saying look. I am not against what he's doing. To call it a haunt is going to make us all look bad if something goes wrong. That's all I'm saying. No, but in saying that, like it should be just called a terror experience, a horror experience.
Some type of like it's
some kind of a how you don't say like escape room haunted house. You say escape room. Like
it's exactly.
It's a terror experience, and I'd say just call it something else. So in the event that something goes wrong, all haunted houses and home, because he started off as a home haunt dude. You know what I mean? So we all started off as home haunters. If someone was to fucking die in your home haunt, in your basement, in your garage, whatever, it's gonna be shut down. Legislation will shut it down, and you know it.
It
it'll be
sets a
shut
legal
down.
precedence.
Right. I'm just trying to say, don't ruin it for everybody. Keep the haunted house aspect out of it. You know what I mean? Make it a haunted experience. I don't know how to
or a torture experience. It's extreme.
Torture. It is. It's torture, man. I don't care what anybody says.
We're not torturing ourselves when we go to haunts. We're
right. Like I said, I want to see the art, man. I walk through so slow with a group behind me is friggin' on my tail, and I'm like, oh, you guys can go ahead of me, because I want to take it all in. I'm there for the art of the scare.
So I do agree.
And the art,
but at the same time, like it is a haunt. Like if you think about like Saw and immersive environments, like that is what McKamey Manor is doing. Is like and as is Blackout and all the other different extreme haunts, like, and this is where I give them props, is because they are doing something that is so different than everybody else, and like they're breaking the status quo. So, but like back to like what you were saying is that like there is people that like do not want this to happen. So there's like a shutdown.
I would say it's a majority.
Yeah, well, and there's a shutdown McKamey Manor.
And that's really what it comes
shutdown
down
McKamey
to.
Manor. Petition on change.org, which is it's a great website. Where like people like shit does happen there, and there's 142,000 people of 150,000 people to get this shit shut down. I don't, dude. I swear to God, I fucking do not think it should be shut down.
I'm not one.
I am worried about him.
Right. I'm not
and
one.
I love the guy. Like I fucking personally, I think he's a good dude. Yeah. Like I think I like, and I know most people probably do not agree with me. I think he's like, I like people that push the limit. Like I don't want people to be in this like, if I think about like haunted houses, like, oh, we're all doing the same shit. Like I want us to like do different shit, and he is doing different shit.
He is doing different shit.
We're talking about pushing the limit. You know what I mean? Like there's two different ways to do it. There's the extreme way, which he is, you know. And again, I have nothing against him. I have nothing against extreme haunts, Blackout, McKamey Manor, etc. And I do agree that the industry as the industry has to grow. When you're talking about pushing limits, I'd rather push the limits as in like Unit 70s has the prop with a pregnant lady and the fetus comes out of her. That's pushing it. I think if you have like, you know, Lucifer and Beelzebub, then you have Baphomet, like
so this
all the satanic stuff. That's pushing it.
What you're talking about is more of an art form, and that's exactly
right.
What
I'm talking about
before.
pushing it artistically.
What he is doing isn't in. So like all of what McKamey Manor does that's different, in my opinion, than the rest of the haunted industry is it's actually real. You are literally being tortured and you could possibly die. He even says in one of the Netflix specials that you could lose one of your teeth. He puts Novocaine and you lose your teeth.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
It's just like that's actually real true torture. It's whereas the fucking people the other haunters in the industry, they aren't pushing it to the true tortured emotional state. And this is all, in my opinion, I think that the way we define what is emotionally tortured or psychologically tortured or whatever it may be is based off of the general consensus of the community, the haunt industry itself. And I would say, and this is all anecdotal on my point, but I would say that most people that I've talked to say that McKamey Manor is not a haunt and is 100% a different, it's a different realm of horror. It is horror for sure, but it's not a haunted house traditionally that most people in the industry would agree is a haunted attraction. Can I
interject? Can I interject real quick? I have an idea. All it is, it has to be a categorized, like a genre. You know what I mean? Yes. Like you have kid. We'll talk about the rating system in a little bit, but you have attractions for kids, you have attractions for teenagers and preteens, you have adult haunts, and then you have extreme haunts. Like, let's have different categorizations. It's just like, if I want to say it, it's just like porn. If you really think about it, there's like straightforward friggin' missionary style porn, and then it goes all the way extreme to the BDSM community. Now, in psychology today, however they ran that test, they say in between 2 and 62% of Americans have fantasies about being dominated or a dominatrix style thing. And that's really what this is. McKamey Manor, any kind of extreme haunt, Blackout, whatever. If you're introducing physical abuse, assaulting, restraint, waterboarding, any kind of degrading, rape, any of that kind of thing,
some people like it. So it's a fetish. And honestly, and they even put it up knowing that there's nothing wrong with the fetish. I'm going to is
real quick. I have it in my head. Just let me get it out. It's just like, if you sign a waiver for it, fucking A.
Yeah.
If you want to do
Which
it,
we're
then
all in
I'm
agreement with, right?
I'm for you doing it. If you go on, all right. So if you go on Pornhub, I don't watch a lot of. I'm just saying,
Sure
if
you
you go on Pornhub, the BDSM views have over 2 million each.
Right.
Go to Pornhub and go to
That's some weird
BDSM.
shit.
Each one of those views are in the millions. You know what I mean? So there are people that want this. There are people that want the McKamey Manor thing. So I am not against them wanting it.
No.
If you want to get waterboarded and stuff, fucking A, I am for you wanting it. All I'm saying is don't push it on everyone that doesn't want it. You know what I mean? So just have the categorization of
I don't think that he
haunt, regular haunt, old school haunted house, which is what I like, and then if extreme terror experience, I'm fucking for it, man. If you want to get waterboarded, there's always going to be a market for everything, you guys. If you really think about it, there's been an extreme underground for everything.
Yeah.
Music. Is you got snuff films and movies. You got
point.
like the punk rock underground, whatever, and for music,
mayhem
now,
or whatever.
for the haunted attractions, you got this shit. You know what I mean? So it's fucking cool. If you want to do it, I'm fucking A, go for it.
Right.
But I don't want it. But when I go to haunted house, if you get in my face, I'm gonna put my arm up. I don't like it. You know what I mean? And
but don't you think that
he
is not, because I want to try
trying-
to put this to somewhere that's an even ground. To me, everything that we've talked about is the history of haunted houses, right? We went from wax museums all the way through which I think is shitty, is Disneyland, what they do with the Haunted Mansion.
But I love
now
it.
here we are today, fucking A. We're talking about how bad McKamey Manor is, and I actually do not feel that it's actually that bad. I know you guys are kind of and everybody has their opinions, but it's immersive horror. And so if people want to be immersed in horror, just as they saw in some movie, Saw, Centipede, Hostel, whatever the fuck it is, if they want to be in that scene in a horror movie, which is what he is doing, he's putting mud in your face, which I think is fucked up. As long as he takes safety precautions to
Oh, he admits that he does.
And he's an
But
old
that's the
military
thing,
guy. I feel like I would
you
trust him. I swear, he might.
Because he's
yes.
military. Is there some type of license that you should get to be
I don't know.
yeah, I can 100% be qualified to bring you to the brink of death.
True. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I know. Who knows what kind of brain damage they're doing whenever there's a certain amount of oxygen that's depleted from the brain, and yeah, maybe a medical profession. I don't know. One thing that he does have with the military experience is he knows how to fucking torture people, and that's actually what he brags about.
He does.
I
don't think I think that's also why people like him. Why people are same with.
Oh yeah, no, and people
Dustin,
for sure.
Dustin, I totally agree with you, man. I don't want to sound like I'm the trying to convince you otherwise or whatever.
Yeah, no,
I totally agree with you. All I'm saying is let him. I don't want his actions to be
affecting us
not so much us, but just affecting the industry. Let a terror experience be a terror experience, and let a mom and pop haunted house be a mom and pop haunted house. Let a dark ride be a dark ride.
Conversation in the first place, which we should probably talk about right now, is to me personally, there's movies, and then there's porn movies, right? I don't want my kids watching porn movies, so then they made different rating systems, correct? If you're gonna go to a haunted house, you should have some type of rating system, correct? Do you guys agree? Yeah,
I totally agree. I
don't know, is
like
it?
I said,
do you believe that
people that are going to
NC-17, because to me, I would look at McKamey Manor. It's definitely NC-17, but fuck you, I would never do it.
I think it's even beyond NC-17, because NC-17 means that you see people having sex and stuff, whatever, and that
True.
Whatever. That's a different.
That's more like black. That's more like
Blackout.
Black,
The Blackout
exactly.
haunted houses to me are That's NC-17. Like, you're gonna see sex.
Yeah, this is a.
But like I said,
separate
everyone,
rating
there's always gonna be an underground. You guys, this is I think let it be an underground thing. I don't want it to become mainstream. Let it be an underground thing. Now, if you have an attraction, a scream park, if you will, have the stuff for the kids during the day, preteens at dusk, and then have the friggin' the adult haunted houses at night, maybe every now and then doing an event. Like, my idea of like full immersive would be like theatrical. You got places like Delusion and 17th Floor Haunted House or Haunted Experience where they add theater to it. And I'm more into that, And again, how I'm talking, I don't want to sound like I'm against it. Like, Dustin, I'm not talking against you, because I totally agree with what you're saying. I respect everyone's opinions, and if you, I just, what I'm talking about is like, if I'm gonna take my kid, I took my 13-year-old sister to a haunted house last year for our first time. If it was anything like McKamey Manor, like if that was like introduced into the norm of like American society, I wouldn't have taken her. I'd be horrified at that, Now again, we're talking about rating systems. Like with my kids, my kids are young. The sex stuff, I try to like, shy them away from a little bit because they're young, but like not like, but every parent's different, man. Because when it comes to the blood and the guts and the gore, I don't shy away at all. I go, let them see it. I want to tell them like that's latex, that's silicone, that's stage blood, and like I've let them watch like horribly grotesque, Day of the Dead, Pumpkinhead, aliens, crazy gore shit.
Yeah.
But then like, I'm watching Eyes Wide Shut and there's like the rape orgy scene and I'm like, all right, you guys, you can't watch this part, like.
Yeah. Well, I know that Dustin and I, we want to bring up like in our haunt, and we've been kind of hesitant on some of it, especially because we're doing it in a neighborhood, but like genital mutilation and things like that, like that would be more like NC-17. Right,
but are we talking about like
not
like
real
live,
genital mutilation,
like live genital
fake
mutilation? But like, because there's Halloween props that show the female nipple and they showed male genital, they show genitalia and stuff like that. Now, if it comes to a prop, that's art to me. So I think someone sculpted that. It was molded. It was casted.
Which is
that's cool. But if I see a real person come out and slit his dick up, I mean, like,
there might be that fetish one day, and that's actually where this conversation ends up going. If you really want to get crazy with it, is like, is there going to be a day where maybe, and this is so far off like the cusp of reality, and I really don't see it in the near future or maybe even a couple 100 years, but is there a point where like at the end of the haunt, like you are raped or whatever it may be, or maybe like they'll cut you, and like bloodlet you and things like that. Is that something that you would stand as the haunted industry?
This is where I go back to like the idea of like when you have a rating system, and I feel like what the MPA does is like it's like 1 through 4, G, PG, PG-13, NC-17. I actually feel like it needs to be even more than that, especially for an immersive theatrical performance, because that's what it is. At the end of the day, you have actors, you have lighting, you have scenery, all this stuff.
But you can put people in an immersive situation. Like you have an actor like grab someone's hand and really creepily take him through the graveyard, or like Delusion does it. If you go on Delusion, it's a horror theater. But they'll split up your groups. One person goes that way. I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. Like I love the idea of like immersion.
It's fucking cool.
Like,
it's
new.
fucking cool to be involved.
But when you
that's definitely cool, man. But if you fucking take somebody's head, everyone's different, man. Again,
you're removing their life source of oxygen.
I have a New England. I know. I have a New England attitude, man. If you get in my face close enough at the bar, I'm gonna push you away. You know what I mean? Man. So if someone wants to grab my shirt and try to waterboard me, are you fucking kidding me?
I'm curious. I'm curious, Jim. Like if I pay,
wait. If you sign up for it and sign a waiver,
allowed to do it.
Absolutely.
Then you should be allowed to do it. I don't want all of our words our people, our listeners out there, I don't want our words to be misconstrued.
No,
you like it,
what he
fucking
does,
do it. If you don't like it, fucking don't do
Blackout
it.
does, whatever any of the extreme haunted houses do, I fucking love it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing your boundaries. I probably won't do it, but I'd probably do it. Like, I think I could join in on those things. Like, could you? Travis and I talked about it, and he's like, I don't think I could fucking do it. And I was like, I could do it, but I'd probably bitch out.
There's no way I could do it. He even tells you,
but wouldn't you do it?
This. Like he recommends.
But wouldn't you do it? Like, because I think it's
interesting. It's interesting.
Right, we're also talking about you guys. So if you watch Haunters, the Love of the Scare, I was watching it the other night just to like recap on some things, and no one even said it. Like in my mind, I was thinking some people are just lost. Some people need something. They need validation. Totally, they need acceptance. They need closure. They need empowerment. They need attention. Like, I don't need any of that shit. Like, I'm strong enough in my own sense of mind where I don't need someone to be, oh, I have to survive McKamey Manor to be worth a damn in society. If you're out there and you need that, that's cool. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole.
Part of you,
I don't need that though. Like, dude, there's other ways to do it. Jump out of a plane, dude. Go bungee jumping. Do something else. Like, you don't have to be degraded to say that you survived something. In my opinion,
so I agree,
maybe
Jim.
I'm wrong.
So like, if I told you, how much money would it take for you to do, like his haunt? Like, would you do it, like, at all? Like, because I would, like, because I think it's I would do it.
$20,000.
If it was for me, I mean, honestly, like, if now you're talking dollars, man. Like, honestly, like, if you give me $1 million, I'll blow somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I could use $1 million. Now, are we talking about money? Because I'll do it for money. Now, are we talking about fun? Because me and you were gonna do it. Like, the three of us were gonna do it. I bet your ass I would laugh the whole time. That's my biggest thing. He'd want to torture me.
You could throw mud in my face. You could fucking the thing that like his
in cold water though, like he'll fucking drown you in cold water.
Which I don't give a fuck about that.
Dude,
like
I
the second you
spit
in my fucking face, the second that like you transmit something that is.
I'm not gonna sign up for that though.
This is all I will not sign up for physical abuse. Now,
what you said about like how much money I can get paid, that's a money thing, man. Like, dude, for $1 million, I could use $1 million. I could use $10,000 to $20,000, $50,000. Now, if someone said for $50,000, you were going to get fucking waterboarded, shit in your face, mud in your head, all that crap. Then I'll do it for the money. I'll keep my mouth shut and everything because I want the money.
There's some
crazy
people that won't even do it for money though, too. Just like in general, like
it's not for money, dude. They have to sign a waiver, and
exactly. That's the main.
It's the attention, man. They want the attention. They want to say they
people on like the dark web that have signed up to be cannibalized by a true cannibal.
Oh yeah,
where like they will cut off. Yeah, and like so they'll like cut off their penis and they'll saute it in front of you. And you will eat it with them, and then I'm not kidding. Like, this is real people, okay? No, that's not a haunted house. That's
right. But what's next for the haunted industry?
Yeah, what's next? Oh, well, we cut off penises and make you eat your own. Like, no,
nothing. Like I said, it should be out there. Okay, like you said, like the numbers are rising. 2,500 to 25,000, 27,000. The numbers are rising, and like I said. That's fine. It should be out there. There should be a platform for people. You know what I mean? If you want to split your genitals or split your tongue or something like that, I'm down for that. I'm down for splitting my tongue, man. Yeah. But like, you have to, if you want it, then that's cool. It should be out there. What we're talking about is pretty much like the haunt industry as a whole. Right. I don't want it to be a social norm to degrade somebody. If you want social degradation,
unless you want to be degraded,
waterboarding, then you go to that location, you sign that waiver, and then you do it, and that's totally cool. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think we're talking about different things. I'm talking about like the everyday. If I want, like, the factory of this and the horror house and all these like big. Do you want to make a haunted attraction? Let it be about the art. Let it be about the animatronics and the props and the art and the set design and the lighting and stuff like that. but leave the physical contact out of it. If you want the fully immersive thing, I agree with it. I believe in it as more of a theatrical performance.
Back in the day, and
we
we did,
go with this
and we
rating
did.
system, though. How far do you want to go with this
I
rating
know.
system, Dustin? Because like, if you get to a
Yeah,
point where
and
it's like you're rated L, M, N, G, P, L, F, you are in -2. What? I don't know. Like,
Well,
I don't know.
I agree.
Where
I
is
agree.
it? Like, where is the line?
A
Like,
rated R or an NC-17 rating is gonna get you like, you know, your basic like you're viewing a sex scene from afar, a naked body from afar. Like, if you want to go beyond that, then fucking A, man. Like, I have nothing against it. What I'm trying to say is, like, you know, maybe it has to go beyond, like you said, Travis, like beyond NC-17.
There has to.
I
think it has to be on like a percentage level, like 1 to 100. 100, you're fucked. You could die.
so the end of it is you die.
Yeah, like
rated.
yes,
you're
basically.
dead. Rated.
And to me,
you're
like
dead,
black,
but we had to
like yeah, like
cannibalize your
Blackout
body.
still like they still care about cinematic,
Oh,
like
Jesus.
I don't. It might be just like
It is fucked
pure
up.
marketing.
In some ways, I want to kind of get off of McKamey because that's, in our opinion, probably the most extreme haunt. I think that it's most haunters' opinion that it's the most extreme haunt. So forget McKamey at this point. Where would you lay different MPA ratings like we do with the movies on different haunts? Like, for example, if you were going to have something, you know, that looked like somebody's, you know, being killed, or, you know, something that, you know, there's sex in the background, or maybe there's something where you are actually getting your finger cut off. I know that's horrible, but like, where would you, like, is it just like something that's evolutionary with the MPA rating for haunted houses? Is it something that we're just going to have to come up with as the community to say, like, yeah, no, that's totally a different thing, and we should rate it differently than the previous, you know, crazy thing that happened? Like, much like what they did with movies, honestly.
Which is what happened.
Honestly, like, first of all, haunted houses have been treated far worse than movies. By the way, we were talking about The Exorcist earlier, and, you know, they didn't, you know, get approval from, obviously, the evangelical Christian community to shove a cross up a, you know, teenage girl, which is horrible. But at the same time, that movie has been more accepted, and honestly, some crazy ass shit has been accepted in a lot of different modern movies, where it hasn't been accepted in the haunt industry with the, you know, same gravitas. For example, like, we went to Nashville Nightmare, right? And they couldn't even hold crosses upside down. It was illegal for them in Nashville to just do that simple thing. But I think that there's a difference between movies and haunted houses, and maybe I'm going way too far here.
No, I like everything that you're saying, dude. You know, like,
but you get what I'm saying.
like movies, like, you gotta think movies have a cult following.
Yeah.
So a haunted house can easily have a cult following. Music, every aspect of life can have a cult following. You know what I mean? So there can be a whole underground. I'm not against it, man. There could be a whole underground for haunts. You know,
Right.
I'm just thinking, like statistically, like, the numbers could be rising for people that want the extreme, but you still have, like, you know, if we're talking about an industry now, we're talking about, like, money. It comes down to money. You know, if you really want to have an industry, if you want to have a haunted attraction, you got to make money. I don't know if is he still getting paid in dog food? Like, I don't want to get in the future. I want to go from home haunt to commercial professional haunt. I don't want to get paid in dog food. I want to make actual money. I want to make a living off of it. So that's how I look at it, where you got people spending, you know, $9 billion on Halloween every year, haunted attractions, candy, costumes, and everything like that.
Right.
I can break it down for you if you'd like, but I'm just saying, like, $9 billion, you know, I bet a small fraction of that is actually going to the terror experience, McKamey Manor kind of thing. But again, it should be there. You know what I mean? Like I
Well,
don't want
he
to sound. I feel like within this podcast, I'm kind of like the advocate against it. I'm
no,
really
me
not.
too. Though you realize that I'm like
it
on the
should-
same boat as you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't know Dustin was going to be.
Dustin is, yeah, he is.
No, but it's cool. It's cool though, man. Because if you
It's
think about it,
interesting when you
all right,
do think
so
about it
when
too
the
far.
Exorcist, we're talking about the Exorcist. When the Exorcist came out,
Yeah.
there were people protesting, "No Exorcist,
Exactly.
no crazy scene," and that goes for everything. Anytime there's something new and vivid and in your face,
crazy,
and horrible, anything fucking like that's ever happened in history. There's always been someone to protest it. You know what I
Right.
mean? That goes all the way back to the Bible. We were talking about the Bible earlier. It goes all the way back to then. So I have nothing against like McKamey Manor and Dark and Blackout and stuff like that. It should be there. It should be there for the people that want it.
Exactly.
You know? But that's so. So I say leave it at that. I just let them have their underground cult following, like the Exorcist.
And this is the question that I have: is should it be part of the haunted community? And I say no. I think it's.
Do you really?
I think it's a different.
Do you
genre.
really say that?
Yes.
Do you see like?
Well, yeah. So like Singapore, for example, Singapore Six Flags had a really interesting take on making it super full immersive experience where they would blindfold you, they would strap you to a chair, and they would have a VR headset on top of your face, and they would have this little paintbrush where that you would see like maybe a Dremel coming down and cut your ear off, and they would have a little paintbrush to make it feel like your ear is wet.
Yeah, I'm down for that, man. I'm
Yeah.
down for like the virtual reality. I'm down for like the feeling that you're in danger, but like
actually
not
being in danger.
actually being in danger, man. Like think about it. If you had a heart attack in one of these fucking places, I'm just saying, like a heart attack, stroke, panic attacks, like that.
McKamey Manor has never had an issue ever.
He had a heart attack.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, he will. He
It's
will.
gonna
Though,
happen
dude.
in any.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
so like we all have heart attacks, but whatever. He is at, he is playing God, is what it is, and he is at their mercy. If he decides not to fucking let their head up out of the water, he could decide not to do that, and he makes himself look.
But
so
he
good
has
in a lot of
never
these
had
movies.
anybody
in his
ever
fucking
die.
YouTube videos. All you have to do is you give me a fucking bag of dog food or whatever, and I help out my dogs. And he also has $800 a month, I want to say it is, coming into him from his military experience. And I really do like say, yeah, good job with that, and I do salute our veterans, but at the same time, like, why is it that he has
I
this
think it's so cool.
every day, every fucking day?
Do you not think
But
it's cool that
such a
people
weird
push
thing.
the limit?
So yeah, for sure. You know what? And the thing is, we're never going to be able to, in this discussion, we all push the bar to try and be the best of the best of the haunters. And, maybe we really will never be able to end this. So please don't forget to like Sharon's. God damn it.
Like Sharon. Who's Sharon?
Like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe.